events and that kind of thing. And we've also just had a lot of floor debate already. Usually we start that after the funnel week. The last 3 weeks, we've moved close to 80 bills off the floor of the House. We're starting to receive bills from the Senate that we move as well. This year, I'm on 5 different committees. I'm on the Agriculture Committee, Natural Resources, Economic Growth, Environmental Protection, also International Relations Committee. International Relations Committee has been really slow. We're not getting a lot of international groups coming through. In fact, none at all this year because of the COVID situation. So been a very, very good year. I've been able to work on some legislation that may have some good interest up in our area. One is I was assigned in economic growth, the governor's tax credit bill for affordable workforce housing. Several groups met during the interim, put together some really good stuff. They've put some things in that bill that could be of some great interest in rural areas. One is they went from 10 million to 20 million set aside for rural housing projects. There's also a downtown initiative where communities can look at improving their downtown if they have a housing aspect connected to it. So those are a few of the exciting things I'll just start with, and I'll hand it over to one of the others.
Well, thank you, Representative Baxter. That was a very good overview. Representative Stone, you know, now I'm
Yes.
thinking Terry is going to want to get some of his time back later, but we'll go with just the 5 minutes. All righty?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's in attendance to this forum, and to everyone who's put this on. You know, it's been quite a quick-paced, fast-paced session for myself, trying to, you know, kind of stop drinking from the fire hose and kind of learning how the process works and things like that. I think Beth, we had spoken earlier just in regards to the different types of legislations that have come through and that we've passed. And so I'm proud of the work that we've done so far. I know that there's some pretty good bills still left after the funnel. So I look forward to, you know, working with my colleagues on that, and just, you know, trying to keep doing, you know, better things for not only our district up here, but, you know, for all of Iowa. You know, the committees I serve on the Education Committee. I serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee and the Labor Committee. I'm the vice chair of the Economic Growth Committee. And then I also serve on the Admin and Regulations Sub-Appropriations Committee. So it truly has been an honor for me to be down there to represent everyone here. I've got some big shoes to fill when it comes to, you know, my predecessor, Ted. You know, I've heard a lot of great things about him. I mean, he's helped me out tremendously, as well as, you know, Representative Baxter and Senator Guth. They've been with me this whole step of the way, giving me advice, kind of showing me the ropes. And, you know, like I said, I truly am honored and humbled and blessed to be down there. And I look forward to, you know, keep doing what I'm doing and doing the great things for us up here in Northern Iowa, as well as around the state.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. We have a few, now my video doesn't, oh, there we go. The wonderful of technical things. I have a few questions that I'm going to start with in the order that they came in. The first one just so happens to be from my board, well, from our brand new county supervisor, from Susan Smith. She's very concerned about the change proposed for resetting basis for farm inheritance. I feel that it's the best way to eliminate family farms. I'm hoping that's not what you want. Now, I'm not sure if this is a state question or a federal question. I talked to one of our CPAs today and he thought it was just proposed. But do you, either one of you, have any knowledge of resetting the basis in the state code?
Well, I'll just say that I sat on the Agriculture Committee. This is Representative Baxter. I have not seen anything come through on the state level for that. I have a suspicion that's a federal initiative. So I just haven't seen any bills come through our ag committee unless it's over in the Senate. If it originates there, we won't get it for a week or so yet. But I'm not familiar with anything on that on the House side.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I have to echo Terry's sentiments. I haven't seen anything come through. This is the first time I'm hearing of it as well.
Well, that will be our simplest question of the day. Our next question comes from my board member and landlord, Darwin Lehman, our school superintendent, and also the Central Springs school superintendent this year. His first question is, with vouchers still alive, where do you stand in your support of using public money for private purposes and why?
Okay, and I'll start again on that. This is Representative Baxter. It looks like the school choice bill that was sent to us from the Senate is not going to make it in the House. It sounds like it's going to die a sudden death here for a number of different reasons. I don't think the bill was a really good bill. It dealt with the 5% of failing schools, most of which were down in Des Moines, and was very restricted. The other thing that I'll throw out to you that's been an issue, and I put it in some of my newsletters, the issue of using taxpayer money for private things is a little bit of an issue that I struggle with. And part of it is because we've had a big struggle, and I've been pretty transparent with it about the kind of curriculum that some school districts, they've been pretty good up here in North Iowa, I just really appreciate that, are using is some politically motivated, leftist-leaning curriculum. And where I'm getting a lot of kickback from parents is they're very frustrated that their taxpayer money is going for an initiative like that. And I really believe that the answer to school choice, and I say the answer to take the fuel out of that fire, is for the public school to be extremely neutral right down the center, not to the left or to the right. For years, some of the conservative people in Christian schools have started their own private schools. They pay for that themselves. From my perspective, as someone that's far bent on the left, if they want to go start their own private schools and pay for that, they can. But the public school should be exactly what it's designed to be, and that's right down the center. So we have two issues there. Yeah, we might have some money going toward private schools if vouchers come in. The other issue is we've already got taxpayer money going to support issues that a lot of taxpayers are very frustrated that their money would go to support. So I think we've got to take a broader look at that and move towards some real reform in education as a whole. And I'll let Representative Stone. I'll let Representative Stone step in. He's actually on the Education Committee. So.
Yep. So this is Representative Stone. So Darwin's question in regards to where we stand on the current proposal. So Senate File 169 technically is still alive because it's passed through the House. Once that bill came over to the House, we actually broke it up into three parts. So the first part would be the Students First Scholarship, what everybody else is deeming that it's a voucher. The second part deals with charter schools. And then the third part is basically the rest of it, everything having to deal with tax credits and tax breaks for teachers and parents, dealing with open enrollment and stuff like that. So we divided it up into three sections. So I spoke with the superintendents here in the 7th district, and I will tell you that I am in support of the Student First Scholarship. So I say that because, so I'm the new kid on the block, right? So I had to go around, Ted Gassman has name notoriety, Representative Baxter, everybody knows Terry and everybody knows Dennis. And so, but I'm just Henry Stone, I'm the new guy. So I actually had to go and basically I had to go and knock on doors and introduce myself. And so I will say that by an overwhelming margin, and I'm talking, it's not even close. I spoke to thousands of parents, and the overwhelming response is that they wanted school choice. They wanted to be able to send their child to a private school, and not have to have the burden of paying for that when they already pay for they pay through taxes. Okay, so we sit there and we'll say, I've received a lot of emails, don't get me wrong, both for and against school choice. So, and we'll sit there and we'll say, public dollars are for public schools, when that's already not the case. Here in Iowa, there is what's called the Iowa Tuition Grant. Okay, this public money, these taxpayers' money, can be used for any student to go to any private college or university here in Iowa. So there's over 40 different private colleges and universities that accept public money. So here at Waldorf, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of public money that go to a private for-profit university, right? So, and we do have public universities, right? We have University of Iowa, we have Iowa State, and we have the University of Northern Iowa. So to say that public money can only be used as a public school, then that would limit where your child goes in attendance to college and universities. They would only be able to go to those three to receive the Iowa tuition grant, and we don't believe that's fair. It already exists, and so we're not recreating the wheel here. So to me, and once you explain that to parents, a lot of parents will, say, well, I didn't know that my public money already goes to a private school. Yes, it does. So, I believe from listening to those around the district that what this past year did with COVID-19 actually exacerbated that fact that, hey, we want school choice. Now, up here, we did a great job at opening up schools and getting back into school face to face. But there's school districts around the state that did not do that, and kids suffered because of that. And so even though we did a good job up here, the notion of having school choice and being able to send their child to a private school still existed. And the bill that we're talking about only applies to 34 schools, 32 of the failing schools in Iowa. And when you talk about, the emails will say, well, instead of taking money out of the schools, why don't we put more money into those failing schools, help them out? Well, once you're designated as a failing school, more federal dollars come in to those schools. So they are getting more money. And most of those schools, over 30 of them, have been on the failing list for 3 or more years. So their budgets have been increased by, for 3 or more years, they've been receiving more money. And so, like I said, I support it. It's a very narrow portion. But to tell you the truth, the House bill that was put forth probably isn't going anywhere. And so if there is any movement, it will be from Senate File 159 or 169, and just kind of moving that piece of legislation through if we decide that we want to vote on the Student First Scholarship. But for right now, it's still just being talked about, but there hasn't been any movement on it.
Thank you, Representative Stone. I'll take a moderator's point of privilege on the Iowa Tuition Aid Grant. Having worked with Waldorf for many, many years, and struggle to, after their sale, to make those students eligible again. The money is not written to Waldorf College or any other college. The money is just like every other student. It's written to the student, and the student can take that money and shop at any private college, because this is one that isn't eligible at the universities, because at the Regent schools, because they have a lot of other things that the private college students can't apply for. And my last commercial is Waldorf has the lowest student debt of any of our colleges in the state. I think of any of the private colleges. So with that, I will go to the next question, which Darwin has one more, but if we have time, we'll come back to this. This one is for Representative Baxter. And this is one that we've discussed this week. This is from Adam Covet. Oh, please forgive me, Adam, if I butchered your last name. Terry Baxter, regarding upcoming TIF changes soon to be taken up by the Ways and Means Committee. What are your feelings on the bill as it stands?
Okay, I'll just jump on it. The tax increment financing within that bill, because I'm not on Ways and Means, I'm not familiar with all the in-workings of what they're proposing with that. I know they're talking about a 20-year sunset for some of the new projects and that kind of thing going out. I'm going to have to wait until that bill gets out of the committee, see what it looks like, and really dig into it and try to get my arms around it at that period of time. And I did have a good conversation with, of course, Beth yesterday on some of that. And what I want to see is questions coming from my districts related to what they're looking for, what they're concerned about within that bill. I'm already getting some feedback from over by Algona. I've got a little bit of feedback from Belmont, and really looking at that. So we just went through funnel week, and what that means is this past week, we've been working really hard and wrapping up the work that we have and the committees we're assigned to. So I'm not really familiar with all the ins and outs of what's going through all the other committees. And when we get into next week, that's when we look at the bills that have survived and we start digesting them, start talking about them as a caucus and really digging into them. So I'm just going to say that I'm not as familiar with that particular bill simply because it's not on my committee, but we'll certainly be looking at it going forward and wide open to hear from my district back here what your concerns are.
Representative Stone, would you like to make any comments on that? I'm not sure if it's in your committee or not.
Yeah, it's not. I don't sit on Ways and Means, and but I do know that it is of importance, and it's important to people here in rural Iowa, and it can have implications when you're talking about property taxes and the the financing mechanism there, freezing the tax base and whatnot. But I'm unfamiliar of exactly what the bill wants to do. But it is something that both Terry and I actually, we spoke about it yesterday, and we are definitely going to, once it gets put forth on the calendars, him and I are going to kind of delve into that and become a lot more familiar with it and see what kind of implications it has, to our district.
We would welcome the opportunity to sit down with you and show you the simple way of how it works. A lot of people say it's really difficult and complicated. It's not too complicated.
We like it less complicated. We can deal with
we
that.
won't make you go through the property tax levy sheet for each county. I get things thrown at me at that point, but we'd be glad to share with you simple projects that worked in Forest City, for example. Now, half of them are in Hancock County. When we recruited CDI out of Indiana 20 years ago, TIF was an integral part of that. When Waldorf was sold, the sale could not be completed until a TIF development agreement was done. And most recently, when we built Westtown Place apartments, one of the problems that we have with workforce housing in a rural area is our comps, our cash flows, and our taxes. Forest City worked with us very well on we have a 20-year fixed development agreement. It will sunset. Forest City doesn't have any of the districts that don't sunset. And I could go on and on, but I'm going to get things thrown at me soon. So, if
Oh,
there
we're
aren't,
glad we're on Zoom.
yes, none of you can reach me, but a couple of you can find me. Okay, we're going to switch subjects a little bit here. Jan Libby from Hancock County sent in a question related to the controversial gun bill under consideration at the State House. Polk County Sheriff Kevin Schneide, hope I didn't butcher his name, has stated his concerns from his Facebook post. He is deeply troubled by the legislation that would eliminate permits, and that he said he could ultimately eliminate background checks for gun purchases. The sheriff said that he values the Second Amendment, but asks, how does this protect neighborhoods and our children? Jan's question is, she said all of that to give the context. Her question is, will each of the legislators please explain who in the law enforcement field in their districts, the county sheriff or local law enforcement, have they talked with about this issue, and what positions any of these individuals have offered on the proposed gun bill? Representative Stone, you want to start, or Representative Baxter?
Sure, I can start.
Okay.
So the the basically they're calling it the Second Amendment, the 2A omnibus bill that's been put forward. Actually, what basically it's doing is eliminates the need to have a permit to carry, right? But every single federal background check will still exist when purchasing the weapon. So it doesn't get rid of that.
Okay.
So I have my CCW, and I do concealed carry. So when I purchased my firearm from Fleet Farm, I had to fill out a background check. It had to, it's done through the FBI database. It's a pretty extensive background check. And then once that came back, I received my weapon, and then I came over here to the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, and I applied for my concealed carry. They did another background check there. So the when it says that it reduces or it eliminates background checks, the only background check it eliminates is the one done at the sheriff's office. It does not eliminate the FBI gun background check done to purchase, the handgun or rifle or whatnot. So, a lot of gun owners will tell you that particular gun check is more extensive than the one done to get your concealed carry permit. I don't foresee that being a problem. So when the representative who put this bill together, when he contacted other states who have what everybody is calling constitutional carry, when he reached out to those states, and they did away with the secondary background check for the permit to carry, it actually increased the number of FBI checks done for gun purchases. So they actually saw an uptick in the federal background checks. So they weren't worried that there was going to be less checks. They were glad to see that there was actually more checks. So I actually, I was just appointed by the Speaker of the House to the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy Council. And so we have an upcoming meeting this week, and I'll be able to talk with actually law enforcement from around the state about their feelings on this. From talking with highway patrol and officers that are there at the Capitol, they are very supportive of this Second Amendment omnibus bill, and don't see it being as a hindrance or a public safety issue. They actually see it as something that's good for Iowa. And a lot of them, at least the ones that I've spoken to, have all been in agreement with this new omnibus bill that we've put forward.
That we don't need local checks for concealed carry permits?
Correct. Yep.
Representative Baxter?
Good. I'll just jump into that. I just want to reiterate what Henry's been saying. I've got a couple of sons that work together at a gun shop down in Clemmy. And currently the way the law works, that if someone has a carrying permit, which can also be used to purchase, if someone goes to purchase a weapon, that is not checked beyond that. It says they've already been filtered. It could have been 2 years ago, and they're automatically have been run through the system so they can purchase. There's no background check needed for long guns like shotguns or rifles. Actually, what the new bill does, it strengthens the background check. And that's one of the misnomers that are out there. Now what has to happen, I shouldn't say not now, but if this bill is passed, every single purchased weapon has to immediately go through the NICS check to purchase that gun. That's a federal check. It has to be called in. It's done really fast. And every weapon is checked then. So it actually strengthens and increases the check process. As far as the grid that you'd go through if someone could conceal, constitutional carry basically has in it the concept that if the Constitution grants the freedom or the right, then the government, apart from strict scrutiny, should not remove that right from them. There should be a way to go through that. And there is a process where local law enforcement, if they sense someone is not suitable to carry, that they can prevent that from happening. That's just like they do now with the carrying permit. So, it's a law that's in place in over 20 different states right now for constitutional carry, and it's what Iowa's looking at. But it actually increases the background check of the person with the purchase of each weapon, not only handguns, but with every weapon, no matter what they do.
I kind of followed that. I think we'll have a whole lot more discussion on that coming up.
Excuse me, this is Jan Libby. I am calling in by the phone. Representative Baxter, I did not hear you address my particular question, which is, can you tell me what local law enforcement you have spoken with on this issue?
Jan, let me just say to you, the bill was just introduced last week. It was not introduced in any committee that I am personally involved in. I did not introduce the bill. We're in the process of clearing all the subcommittees and getting that work done. That's the conversation I'll have moving forward if that bill comes to the floor. It's not on a committee that I'd go back at this point and have those conversations. I was occupied with the 4 other committees that I'm involved on.
Okay, so that is a conversation you might yet have.
Yeah, and most of the local law enforcement, by the way, do shop at my son's gun shop down in Clemmy. So I have a pretty good relationship with them, and we'll have those conversations moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Well, let's go on to our next question. This is from Steve Westerberg. Mr. Stone, like most states, Iowa is experiencing a severe shortage, except for elementary classrooms, of people entering the teaching profession. Research shows great student performance requires great teachers. As a member of the Education Committee, what ideas do you have to address this growing problem? Representative
Well,
Stone?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So I think that the bill or the piece of legislation that the governor signed late last year which reduces the some of the requirements to get your licensure here in Iowa, just making it easier for teachers who have certifications in other states to be able to transfer here relatively easy and pick up the certifications and start to teach. Went a long way actually in being able to get higher quality teachers here and the number of teachers here as well. So, you know, I haven't heard, talking to other education committee members, speaking to other teachers here, in the district up here in the different school districts around here. I haven't heard that they're having a hard time finding teachers or anything like that. I mean, there's the, we can always, get more, or, we wish that it was, easier for teachers to become certified or whatnot. And like I said, hopefully, I'm sure it's going to take a little while for what the governor signed to take effect and allow a little bit easier process for teachers to transfer in. It's going to take a little time for that to kind of rear its head and show the numbers or whatnot. Just speaking here in the Forest City School District, where our son goes to, they've got great teachers there, and I haven't seen a reduction in that. There's some great bills out there that allow a little more flexibility in the way different areas are being funded. I introduced legislation that helps out our superintendents and school boards. Actually, we'll take a vote on it on Monday, so I'm kind of proud of that. That I was able to get that through subcommittee and through our committee, but it allows our superintendents and school boards to fund co-curricular and extracurricular activities without having to submit a spending authority and try to get the money transferred into a flex account, because a lot of these co-curricular and extracurricular activities suffered through the pandemic without having gate receipts and without having concession sales. And so a lot of that is funded through that. And so getting that bill passed will just allow, superintendents and school boards to transfer the money as they see fit, and into that area of need. And so, taking steps like that from within the education committee and seeing bills that help, all the different school districts here around the state out. I think, once all that starts to get out there and it shows that Iowa, does care about the teachers, we do care about our students, goes a long way in attracting quality educators here. And actually, I know actually a couple that are in school now and are going to become teachers themselves. So
Good. You can tell them to come up to North Iowa. We have great jobs.
so I plan on doing that. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I do have a wonderful announcement. Senator Guth is in the room.
Oh, good.
Senator, if you can unmute. Are you unmuted? Did I hear you?
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Yeah.
Oh,
Very good. Yes, I apologize for being late. I have not had a clerk for a week because my daughter has had some medical issues, and we have 6 grandkids here at the moment. So I've been not even thinking about this today. So apologize for that.
Well, maybe you could get the oldest one to come help on the computer.
I'm not so sure she's quite ready for that yet. She's only just turned 10.
Well, you never know.
You never know, yes.
And Senator Guth, we've been through several questions. We have one more to go, but if you want to give the audience an overview of your committees and what you're working on, we'll go. After that, we'll go on to the next question.
Okay. I am chairman of the Admin and Regs Appropriations Subcommittee that oversees 17 different state departments, things like the Department of Revenue, inspection and appeals, the Iowa Utilities Board, and the whole list down there. Don't want to go through the whole list there. Then I'm also on state government, I'm on local government, and I'm on labor. So that seems to keep me plenty busy enough. Some of the things that I've been working on, a couple of things dealing with vaccinations, and one of them that I'm happy to see has been trimmed down a little bit, but is now ready for floor debate in the coming weeks is, let's see, it was just changed number, SF 555, I believe it is now, that says that an employer cannot require an employee to get a COVID-19 vaccination. So, and it also says that you cannot require a identification on your driver's license to designate whether you've been vaccinated or not. So that one is ready to go to the floor. And I have a very large rewrite of ag drainage laws. It's almost the whole chapter. And we just introduced it finally on Thursday, and we're not planning on trying to pass it this year. Our plan is to try and take a year of going to county supervisor boards and farmers to explain what we're doing, because we aren't saying this is the way it has to be, but we have a big start on code that's 100 years old, and we're trying to get this correct. So that's an important one. And another one that I'm kind of doing the same thing with affects IPERS and the retirements for firefighters and police officers, law enforcement people. And that says we should not be investing our retirement funds in Chinese military companies that could not have the United States' best interests in their mind. And right now we have about, trying to remember off the top of my head, I think it's $2.6 million or billion dollars invested in those sorts of things, which sounds like a lot, but we have $35 billion in our investments. I think maybe the numbers are wrong. I think it's 2.6% of the $35 billion is what's invested in that kind of companies. So to make some adjustments will take a little time, but it's not an impossible task. So with that, I'll just go ahead and go with the questions.
Okay, well, we'll finish our final one and then see what else we have. Our last one is from Lissa Holloway. What happened to the racial profile bill? This is for Senator Guth and Baxter. Free speech. Should Trump or anyone else be able to spread lies regarding voting on social media? I think these are related. They're kind of different ones, but I'm going to read through and we'll see where we answer. Why do we need further laws to make voting more difficult if there was no fraud? Do you believe the big lie that there was widespread voter fraud? The other one is about background checks, but I believe we've already covered that. Senator Guth or Representative Baxter, okay. Do you want to start?
The first part was what now? The first part of that question?
Okay.
There's a bill that she was following, which
What happened to the racial profiling bill?
Okay. I have not even heard of a racial profiling bill, so I can't tell you what happened to it.
I've heard of discussions on primarily that there should be, and I think the Des Moines Council was taking some up, but I'm not sure of any with the state. Representative Baxter, is there anything in the House, or was there?
Yeah, we had nothing in the House on racial profiling that I know of. I don't know where that question comes from. I will say, related to the second part of that question with the voter integrity bill that we are working on in Iowa, there's a little bit of a misnomer out there that there was nothing that went wrong in Iowa toward election misconduct. That's not true. One of the things that we put into this bill that we're working on is basically for auditors that they cannot intentionally do something that is not fair. And one of the things that we had happen in Iowa, we had a judge that threw out 100,000 ballots, early ballot requests, And one of the reasons was the auditors had gotten involved in what could be called ballot harvesting, where they sent out the request to request your early ballot just to a certain group of people and not to all of them. And that was a very, very unfair move. And with those 100,000 ballots that were thrown out, I'd say after that we had pretty fair elections. And part of what we did in our bill right now is try to bring all auditors in every precinct and county in the state of Iowa in conformity under the same election rules and under the Secretary of State with that, bringing that together. The other thing that happened with the bill, with the primary election, the Secretary of State arbitrarily sent out absentee ballot requests to everyone. That was not what the election law said, set by the legislature in Iowa. So we did not disenfranchise voters. We went back to the way the law always read, that ballot requests have to be sent in for absentee to the auditors. And that application process is part of the validation point to make sure that the person requesting is indeed the person that's going to be voting. And with this bill, we just went back to what was always there rather than what the Secretary of State had changed. And there's a number of other things that happened with this bill, but we want to make sure that our election process in Iowa is fair and even for everyone. I would disagree that it does anything to disenfranchise anybody. Absolutely every voter in Iowa has the exact same approach to voting. It doesn't favor anybody and it doesn't discredit anybody. So I'll just throw that out to you.
Representative Stone, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so the election bill that we passed, I believe it was House File 590, if I remember correctly. So there, basically there's a general question, is this in response to Donald Trump's claims of election fraud and whatnot? And it's not. That's not what we do here in Iowa. Were there inconsistencies and pieces of fraud or things like that? Yes, there were. There were requests for absentee ballots by individuals in our state. I know of 4 personally in our district where these individuals died 20 years or more ago, but they requested an absentee ballot. So it goes to show you that there are some inconsistencies there. So, but I mean, overall, here in Iowa, we just wanted to strengthen the laws. We had a very great election process here in our state in 2020. We've always had a great election process here. The soundbite of it, this is voter suppression, that was said in 2017. And then in 2018, we had the largest non-election year turnout ever. And then in 2020, we had the largest presidential election turnout ever again. So 2 elections in a row, we had more people turn out, even though we strengthened the laws, the election laws here in Iowa. So, I don't believe that anything that we're doing is to suppress voters, but it just provides uniformity in our election laws. And it just, confidence in our elections is extremely critical. Iowans need to, be able to have faith when they cast their ballots. And so that's all we wanted to do, is just to reinforce that, because there was enough negativity this time that we just wanted to say, hey, look, we understand what Iowans want. We want to calm their fears. We want to make sure that they understand and have confidence in our voting cycles here. And so that's all we did. Nothing in this bill or in that bill that passed does anything to prevent that. And it only goes to bring everybody back together and say, hey, we love Iowa. we want what's best for Iowa, and our voting process is what's best for Iowa. So
on the voting issue, I'd add on that, the thing that's going to vote, that suppresses the vote the most, is when people don't have confidence that their vote's really going to count, that the elections are going to be totally fair. So I think the standard that we use out on the farm is the best way to do this is to fix the fence before the cattle are out. And that's what we're trying to do here, is fix the fence before the cattle get out.
Well, thank you all. Lissa, I believe, is in the meeting. If you had a short follow-up or anything that you wanted to ask, you can unmute yourself. Well, while we're waiting on that, I'd also like to ask.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay. The question that I think all the gentlemen have been avoiding is when they talk about having faith in the election process. I think the biggest concern with the last election were all the untruths and lies that were spread saying that it was a false election. And the Republican Party and even up through our governor, no one would admit that those were lies that were spread by the Republican Party that were meant to make people feel like this was not a safe process.
Okay, I'd respond to that just saying, from where I'm at, sitting out here in my farm, I have no way of knowing if all of that was completely true or not. So I am not going to say one way or the other. One thing that really bothers me is that we have so much censored on the internet right now, so that we can't easily get all the information we'd like to get. We only get one side of it. So I'm really hoping that we can do something about that in the state of Iowa here this year.
So with that comment of the censorship, so do you feel it is okay then with like Facebook to be able to continue to spread the untruths that many people have been doing? Such as Twitter, when Donald Trump was taken off of Twitter, you know, he kept spewing all of these lies about the voting process. Are you saying that is censorship and he should be able to continue to do that?
I'm saying they don't have the resources either to determine what is truth and what is not truth. We need to get all of the information on both sides of it and be able to decide for ourselves. In this case, Twitter and Facebook are deciding what we should get for information, and I think that is wrong.
And I would add to that, I think we're in a very dangerous situation when any private enterprise claims they have the authority or ability to silence a sitting president of the United States. I would say that's a violation of a number of things we've got to look at. Now, where do I stand on whether or not there was voter fraud in this election? I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. You know, I think there's a problem when the court will not look at the evidence related to it. And I just look at it and say, I reject your notion that there was lies being spread. I think there's a lot of evidence being spread that for whatever reason, the court decided to not look at. And I reject the notion from the left that these are lies. I just outrightly reject that.
Well, I'd like to open this up to some people to put questions in the chat. If anybody that didn't send any in earlier, let's see who all we have on here. And do we have any questions in the chat currently, Cassie?
None currently.
None currently. Would anybody like to ask a question? You can, honestly, I don't remember how this works. If you raise your hand or tell in the chat, I still go like this. But then I can't see everybody right now.
If you go to the chat, you can type in a question. And if you want to speak, I think if you roll, there should be a place there to raise your hand, and then we can unmute you.
Well, everybody
Or
can
you
unmute
can.
themselves.
Yeah.
We've changed our view, or I mean that in a technical manner.
There's a question in the chat now, or a topic of discussion.
Now that I've closed the chat. Cassie, would you
Deals
like to
with
read that off
ethanol.
to us?
Sure. It says Mary Walk is, she listed ethanol standard in Iowa, big market share here in North Iowa.
Mhm. I'll just touch on that. I like the governor's initiative with the fuel standard going to E10. I think it's going to increase demand in Iowa. It's going to give us more an opportunity for our crops to be marketed at home. The other thing that was a concern by some of my constituents is that we'd still have non-ethanol fuel available for small engines, old engines, marine engines, and then also for aviation applications. And one of the reasons I got behind that initiative is I was assured in the process that we'll always have the non-ethanol fuel available for those applications. So I think it's a good measure.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with Terry. You know, even though this bill hasn't made it through, obviously for North Iowa and our farmers, you know, this is something that's extremely important and near and dear to their hearts. And so, you know, to have a standard of E10, you know, I think the bill actually goes further into saying that, you know, all the pumps will be at least E10, except for one pump being just pure unleaded fuel without any ethanol additive. You know, I think that some of the pushback has been with the E15 and E85, but you know, gas stations all have the ability to, you know, convert from E10 to E15 should it go that route. I think the largest concern of that bill is the biodiesel portion. But I know that they've kind of rolled that back a little bit. The bill allows for stations to offer during, I think it's from like October 15th through April 1st or March 30th, the ability to switch from B20 to B5, you know, so that you have less biofuel in there, because so it doesn't hurt the engines and cause it to gum up and things like that. And so you know, I want what's best for our district up here. And if we're going to lead the nation in corn growing, then we need to lead the nation in ethanol producing as well. And so I can say that, you know, that with the way that the bill is written, with the ethanol portion, I can get behind that. I can get behind our farmers and you know, and support that piece. Again, I haven't seen the full bill come through. I have heard different parts, even from farmers, like I said, in regards to the biodiesel portion. You know, I'm talking to, you know, other presidents and of organizations up here in regards to that have trucking companies and stuff, like they're in Lake Mills. You know, talking with Dennis Steffens, and anyway, it's something that I can get behind. I can help protect our farming community and get behind the standard.
And I'd have to agree with that. We do have some trouble with, especially trucking companies. I've had different ones contact me that said, wow, we drive 50 million miles a year through all of the central United States. We don't buy any fuel in Minnesota because they have a biofuels mandate. And if they do that in Iowa, we won't do that either. It's not a mandate, it's a standard. They're also saying we can't have just one pump that has non-biodiesel, because we can't all line up behind one pump when you get to the big truck stops along the interstate. So I think if we handle those things, though, it's something that we can all get behind and try and make sure that we are using biofuels here in Iowa.
I would agree. It's a very important part, whether you live on a farm or live in town. It's a large portion of our economy. We do have two questions in the chat. One is on guns and one is on mental health. Since we have already talked about the guns, I'm going to bring up the mental health as well. And if we get a chance, we can go back to the gun question. This is from Mary Walk. Mental health funding should come from the sales tax portion of the budget, not property taxes. Your views on this? Who would like to start? Does either of you see?
Well, I'll step up and speak on it. This is Representative Baxter. And I would say that that line of reason was connected very closely the last couple of years with the initiative to do a sales in tax increase in Iowa. That would have raised sustainable resources for mental health. I think there's some merit to that discussion. Right now, that discussion seems to be set on the wayside somewhere. So I don't know where else we can go with that sustainable resources coming in. I do know that we've got a mental health issue that we cannot ignore. COVID-19 has added to it. It's a big one. And we've got to continue working at our mental health. One of the things we're doing with that is trying to do some things where we can do some telehealth care with mental health care, especially in remote and rural areas. And in the legislature, we're looking at a lot of things we can do as alternative measures to help address it. But the I Will program itself, that was part of that discussion of putting on sales tax, seems to at this point, and it started last year, I think, when we were suspended with COVID, that seems to be on hold right now. So that entire discussion right now is something that's going to have to be picked up moving forward. And I don't know if we have the support in the legislature to raise the sales tax at this period of time. So it's going to be an ongoing discussion. It's not one that's going to be quickly resolved.
I'd like to add with that.
I'll go.
I'll go ahead. All right. This is Senator Guth. And I just like to add, I think property taxes is not the right place for the bulk of this to go. When we were discussing this on the Farm Bureau Forum, the chairman of Ways and Means here in Iowa, or in the Senate, I mean, said this is a big problem we have coming down the road, especially with the federal government going to be cutting back some of the Medicaid and Medicare confused here once in a while. They'll be cutting back on that in the future. So there's going to be a large increase in the amount of health care that Iowa's going to have to pick up. So we have to be careful how we do that. He was suggesting maybe a 5-year or longer phase out of property tax paying for mental health to put that in the general fund. So I think that's probably something that is doable, but it's, of course, nobody wants to start paying for it, but I sure think that it's not very fairly done when it's put on property tax. So I would look for that to come from our Ways and Means Committee to have a way to do that through the general fund.
Yeah, and I'll have to second that with Dennis, and both what Terry said as well, that mental health is definitely something that is in existence and going to be a larger portion of the conversation that we have. I was on that call as well with Dennis and Terry and Farm Bureau, and so Dennis is correct, that they're trying to take it off property taxes, but like Terry alluded to, with the federal government taking away their federal dollars match in excess of $200 million to the state of Iowa. It forces us. Now, I say that I don't want to worry anybody. They could extend that. So it's been extended quite a few times. So it's but the fact of the matter is that here in 2 years, like it could be gone. And so finding a way to properly fund mental health care is something that, strategically we need to look at as an ongoing appropriation, and how are we going to fund that? Because it's not like a one-time deal, right? I mean, we need to invest in the mental health of everyone here in Iowa, and so the best way to do it is something that is going to be talked about. They assured us that this is something that they are taking a look at, with our budget people, and Farm Bureau is on top of it. Let me tell you, they understand what those guys are awesome, and they are trying to take those steps forward. And Director Garcia, the Department of Human Services, has some great ideas. And so we look forward to this conversation. We look forward to moving it forward and expanding, being able to take care of our Iowans, because mental health is, it doesn't exist just in farmers or just in military people or just in adults. I mean, our children are affected by this. And so we need to take a very good look at this and make sure that we are taking care of all of Iowans, and how we fund this and making it sustainable. So.
Well, thank you. We are quickly getting close to the end of our time. I would like to have Lissa has a question in the chat, and we'll have this be our final question before our wrap up. It's a simple question of, is it true that through private sales of firearms, no background check would be done? Would one of you like to answer that? Perhaps Representative Baxter?
I'm not positive what the current law in Iowa reads with that. One of the questions we have that's difficult with that whole issue is when one family member would pass a firearm on to another family member. Do you have to back up and do that whole background check again in that scenario? For example, I just lost my father up in Minnesota and inherited a few of his long guns. Is that something that would merit stopping and doing a background check, or is there a family heirloom with that? That question is up for grabs a little bit. I'm not totally convinced that is something that we need to do along those lines, especially in that scenario.
So I can weigh in on this. This is a Representative Stone. So under current law, there is no background check that exists that takes place in a person-to-person sale. So this bill has nothing to do with that portion in that aspect. So like I said, under current law, there is no background check that is required or takes place in a person-to-person sale. But what this bill does do, it changes the punishment for selling a firearm to someone who shouldn't have one, from an aggravated misdemeanor to a Class D felony. So if you are selling a gun to someone that you don't think basically is on the up and up, if you sell them a gun and they use that gun in the commission of a crime, you could be charged with a Class D felony. So right now it's just an aggravated misdemeanor. So this one actually strengthens private sales and holds the seller more accountable, to what's going to happen. And a Class D felony, you're talking about 5 years in prison, the loss of the right to carry a firearm, significant effects on a person's ability to get a job, and so there are some serious ramifications taking it from a aggravated misdemeanor to a Class D felony. Like I said, currently, I just want to reiterate, currently there is no background check that takes place in person-to-person sales. And what this bill does is it introduces and stiffens the penalties if you do sell a firearm, to make you more liable or more responsible for what happens based on that sale.
And this is Senator Guth. Just to let you know where I'm at with this, I've known that there's been something going through the House for a couple of weeks here, but haven't read that yet because it's in the House, and I wasn't too concerned about it till it gets ready to come over to the Senate. Just yesterday, I found out that there is a similar bill in the Senate, but haven't had a chance to read through it yet. So I really can't tell you what the answers are on that, and just began hearing it. And sometimes people don't understand why I don't know about every bill that's going on down there. There's probably, well, I know the last ones that I filed was Senate File 599. So or 590. There's 500 of them in the Senate for files, plus there's Senate study bills and joint resolutions, and they probably have more than that over in the House. So I certainly am not familiar with every bill as it comes through, but through the different portions of it. But I know much more about it now that we get past funnel week and we're able to focus on the ones that made it through funnel week. Then we all find out a little bit more about each bill.
Well, thank you all very much for your comments, and thank you to everybody who asked questions. I am going to give our legislators a few minutes for a wrap up, but before we do that, I want to thank my co-sponsors here of Jill Kramer from Hancock County Economic Development, Melissa with Winworth Betco, and Cassie Johnson with Lake Mills Chamber and Development, especially Cassie, who has been operating the Zoom for all of us and has spent this week teaching us quite a few things. And I'd also like to thank Sean Keeper, who has had to leave, but is from my office. So from all of us, we thank you for your attendance. And I think we will go in reverse order this time. We will start with the Senate and then go to the House. So Senator Guth, you have just a few minutes.
Okay, I won't take too long here. One of the things that you're going to have to get maybe out here in the counties is the same thing we do in the Senate, is we have pages that run all of our Zoom meetings. We have a bunch of high school students that do that. And it's really been a joy to watch those kids adapt. Of course, the pages that are here this year have no idea what happened in previous years, so they don't know how different everything is. And Henry doesn't know either how different everything is from other years. But right. They really got excited this year. And just yesterday, the pages introduced a bill. They actually talked to the chairman of state government, and he thought this is a good idea. So he submitted it, had it written, and then he took it to the head of the Department of Education, and she approved it. So yesterday we had a page read the bill in, we have to do this a little different on the last days like this. She read it in a subcommittee meeting, and then we went to a subcommittee as a whole, which not very many people can understand what all that is. But she got to read that, not on the floor of the Senate. She had to read it from the balcony. What the bill does is it says that pages will be able to get a half a credit toward graduation in their social studies, and also that they don't have to make up extra phys ed that may have been missed, because some schools now don't require that of their pages, and other schools do require it, and we're trying to make it uniform across there. Senator Bolton said he was a little disappointed to see that we were taking away the extra requirement for phys ed. And as I responded to him, I said, you know, Senator Bolton, all we need to do is say that the pages can't use the elevators, and they'll get all the exercise they need while we're here, because there's a lot of running up and down that they do. So
I think the steps in the Capitol would count quite well.
Yes, I trimmed that. Actually, I get in better shape during the session because I don't ever use the elevators. I go up and down the stairs all the time, and I'm a lot less winded by the end of the session than I am at the beginning of the session.
Well, thank you, Senator Guth. That was a great bill. I saw that introduced. It was nice to hear the background for it. We'll go with Representative Baxter, and then we'll let the new guy have the last word.
Good, thank you. I do appreciate this. I'm always thankful when we can get together and have some forums back home and keep everybody up to speed. I want to touch on a personal bill that I worked on really hard in the off season and also this year. It's a second chance bill for some, not all, of our lifers who are non-juvenile lifers serving life without chance of parole. We know there are some in there that have been reformed. They've gone through some neat things. Others who may be innocent and wrongfully charged. And we worked really hard, got a lot of public opinion on it, getting more support, and it looks like it's stalled out this year. So hope to come back next year and address some of the things we've learned on that. Another thing that's really significant is we worked really hard this year on child care. We have 3 or 4 bills over in the House just dealing with different aspects of access for child care in our communities, that kind of thing. That's a big issue. And I just really appreciate working on that and seeing some things going through where we can get more of that provision in our local areas for our workers. One final thing I want to touch on that's a big issue in Iowa deals with broadband. We had quite a discussion in the House. We're still working on it. Should we require that every broadband initiative going out across the state be fiber optics? Or should we back up a little bit and look at something that's really good in some of these hard to reach areas, get them into some high speed internet, but maybe not broadband? So we want to get that done. We want to move it forward. It's very important that we continue working on it, and that discussion is going forward. So I just want to share those things in closing.
Well, Beth, I appreciate you letting me have the last word. The new kid never really has that chance. So
I figured you'd need the opportunity now.
So I do. I really appreciate that. And, I really appreciate these forums, whether they're virtual or in person. I appreciate hearing from everyone, on both sides of the aisle. And we're never going to agree on every single thing and how things are done. But at the end of the day, it's my job to listen to my constituents and try to reach a common ground. It's my job to understand that there's always 2 sides to every subject. And so, we as legislators, and I think Dennis and Terry do a supremely good job. And they've mentored me well on hey, Henry, we need to make sure that we're listening to everyone and not just ignoring one side, or if they don't agree with how we agree with, then don't listen to them. I mean, they are always telling me, Henry, we got to listen to them. We got to take those into account. And so I really appreciate everything you guys do to put these forums on and everything. And I will say that what I'm proud of is this week, basically the House passed a COVID-19 relief package. I don't know if you guys have heard, Beth, if you've heard of this or if seen it come out, but it's basically a relief package for Iowa taxpayers and businesses that were affected by COVID-19. What this bill does is it provides $128 million in tax relief to Iowans by exempting pandemic-related grants and unemployment benefits from state income tax. So your regular unemployment or grants, I mean, you're going to be subject to the normal tax, but anything pandemic related is exempt. It basically provides financial relief right now for Iowans that were hit by the pandemic, and we just feel that since it was the government that forced shutdowns, which basically led to job losses and income losses, the Republicans firmly believe that taxing that pandemic relief money is not the right thing for Iowans. And so we passed a bill to exempt that. So we want to make sure we take care of everyone. And so, again, I can't thank you guys enough for spending, over an hour listening to us. And I appreciate the questions. And I would say, if anyone is out there that wants to email me, please do. If you would like my weekly newsletter, if you'd like that to come to your email to kind of see what's going on, when you email me, I'll have your email so I can respond to that. I'd love for you guys to get out and do that. And if there are any other questions, by all means, shoot me an email or give me a call.
I made a mistake on this. I need to make one correction. I blame it on the Sudafed, and thank goodness with being on Zoom, none of you will catch my new cold. I forgot to list the Forest City Chamber of Commerce, and Norma Hertzer as the director, as one of our co-sponsors. They've been a very good partner in all of this. And so if you see them, please thank them as well. But thank you much. Unfortunately, this is our only legislative forum this session, but you've seen on the screen that Representative Stone and oh, I almost said Congressman, and Senator Guth.
Hey, I like that.
On the 26th.
Don't turn me into a congressman. I like it here in Iowa.
Yes, I was going to say that maybe wasn't the nicest thing, but I'm going to quit before the Sudafed runs out. Thank you all, and we will see you again at our next event. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.